All right. Good morning, Dan.
Hey,
Gosh, we'll jump on another podcast here. It was a good one today. I really liked the conversation. Moose, sheep, and goat, and flowed into bears, and then there's always just a ring of like the fall season and how we're preparing and getting ready in the adventure. So man, it's just great.
it was, and we're going to disclose who drew a sheep tag in this episode, and it could have been me, it could have been Brian. I'm not going to say yet, but no, it was a great conversation, very impactful, like they always are, and we got on this recording not really knowing where it was going, but we got done with it. We hit that hour mark, and we were like, yeah, that was a good one. Just like they all go. I mean, it was a great one.
Yeah, I love this podcast, Dan. This is the funnest podcast every other week that to get to be able to jump on with you and compare notes. And we both love bow hunting so much. So, I mean, we've actually been doing this podcast for about the last 10 years. Every time we get together, all we talk about is bow hunting. We just finally put it in the works and released it out to everybody else. And so I always really enjoy my conversations with you. And that like really comes through on the podcast, man. It's just, man, it's the funnest hour, like each and every time we get on to record, man. I love it.
The time goes by so quick, and time flies when you're having fun, or when you're talking hunting with a good buddy. It's hard to beat. So yeah, it's such a great podcast. It's definitely my highlight of the week when I get a hop on and talk hunting with you. So yeah, likewise, buddy.
Yep. Well, we'll get into it this week. We just want to thank a sponsor. We want to thank G5 Arrows. So I'm so impressed with these arrows and so glad that these guys are producing these arrows. They really put everything into them. Their components, the front end, they have an outsert, but that ballistic collar that then protects that end of the arrow shaft to the outsert connection just makes it strong as all get. I've been shooting these arrows now for a few months. I have not ruined an arrow yet, and I love the back end components as well.
Yeah, yeah. Your arrow is only as good as your components, right? How much durability you have up front, the toughness. And I haven't bent one, haven't broke one. I've shot red deer with them, shot goats, no failures, no nothing. So I've been impressed. Great components, great components. Thoroughly impressed with the components. I love the small diameter arrows and that tough collar up front. Tune great. Spine is so spot on. So yeah, it's everything you can ask for that you need, that a serious bow hunter needs in an arrow, they provide it. So super stoked with them.
Yeah, great straightness tolerance, weight tolerance, like everything a bow hunter could want in an arrow. So yeah, so pumped on these things for this season and running them through a handful of critters. And so thanks to G5 for their support of the podcast. We really appreciate it here on EBJ.
Yep, great stuff. Also, check out the Elk Collective and the Deer Collective. Ooh, I said the Deer Collective. What's that? What's that, Dan? It's the Mule Deer course renamed. So we've partnered. We've really been working on the Elk Collective as far as content wise goes, and we are kind of shifting gears with the Mule Deer course and calling it the Deer Collective now. And what that does with the Deer Collective, it allows us to expand more content under that deer umbrella. So whether it's whitetail, obviously it's mule deer centric at the moment, but it gives us that opportunity to expand and dump more content. Brian was down here last week. Man, it seems like forever ago. It was only a week ago. He was down here, and man, we had some great conversations when he was down here in person, and a lot of content that we're creating for both the Elk Collective and the Deer Collective. And that content dump for both of those is coming up here in the next month. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, we recorded some awesome podcasts that will release on this feed on Eastman's Elevated, and also some exclusive content or exclusive podcasts and content that we put together. And man, it was awesome. I think we put some really good stuff together. And the Deer Collective, the Elk Collective, it's all meant to cut your learning curve to make you more successful. And so it's really all of Dan and I's knowledge about traveling, hunting different habitats, being able to dial in these species and be consistently successful. So I really think that like this, it's $10 a month or it's $100 a year, whatever it is, like to be able to cut your learning curve by 5 years and be able to get you more success on these species and just a better grasp and better handle on your strategy and tactics. And so, man, if this was available when I was younger, I was trying to soak up as much knowledge as I could. I mean, I spent way more than this buying books and videos and trying to learn it. And it was nowhere near the information or content that we have in these things. So seriously, guys, if you guys have an elk or deer hunt coming up, like check out these, the elk collective, the deer collective, and all the content we have in there. It's sure to cut your learning curve.
And if you can feel our passion today in this podcast, and you get the bow hunting bug flowing through your veins, sign up. I'll give you a code for both of them. I just decided I'm going to do this, Brian, but I'm going to give you a code. The code is anchor, just like an anchor point for the deer collective or the elk collective. That's going to give you 75% off. So you bow hunters out there, we love you. Thanks for listening. Get on there, buy yourself the elk collective or the deer collective for $25 basically, but it's 75% off. Anchor is the code. This will be the only place and the only episode that code will be in. So make use of it, and we sure appreciate your support.
Right on, Dan. Yeah, I like it. That's killer, man. We'll check out everything we're doing over at Eastmans. We got the new season of Beyond the Grid will be hitting this summer. I got to see Dan's elk episode, which is amazing, man. It's such a good job on the footage, on the edit. We're really taking Beyond the Grid to the next level. I'm stoked at that late season deer hunt. I saw the edit on that one. So we've got some killer episodes that are coming up and some awesome episodes that we've already done. So check that out. Eastman's Hunting TV, Beyond the Grid. Check it out on YouTube. And find us there. The magazines, I think we covered it. Dan, what am I forgetting?
Yeah, the Eastman's Hunting Journals podcast, a podcast with Ike. Yeah, Beyond the Grid, new season coming in July, so we got a couple months. It's been so fun editing these and reflecting on last year's adventures, and that all plays in with prepping for adventures coming up. So it's just a great time of the year. I'm so excited with the content we have dropping. Elk hunting, moose hunting, deer hunting. Like, it's going to be an awesome season. So yeah, check out our stuff, TagHub. I know tag research and the application periods are kind of winding down here, but yeah, TagHub, another property that we've been working on. And yeah, man, I think you covered it, Brian. I think we're dialed.
Cool. Let's get into this podcast.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Good morning, Dan. Didn't get lucky on that Wyoming moose, sheep, and goat, huh?
No, luck is not my middle name.
There is something with like last names and birthdays, aren't they? It's like it sure seems like some guys have more luck than others, but you just got to get your name in the hat and see if they pull it out, I guess.
That's what I keep telling myself, but I am superstitious. I believe that there's names and numbers, depending on what state you're in, that just get favored. That's my theory.
Well, Guy is so smart with statistics and like he went to Purdue for math, and so he's so intelligent. And I know that's like I kind of bought into his theory on it, as he's always looking into draw odds and things. And he was he always talked about his wife was so lucky that he was going to change his name to try to get better draw odds. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, our theory on that one was double letters for whatever reason. You guys are gonna laugh at this, but for whatever reason in Montana or Wyoming, like I knew all these guys that had like double letters in their last name that were consecutive, and they were always drawing tags, and I was like, there's got to be something with it. And Rinda's last name, she had double letters, and it was like she drew anything she wanted. And so, yeah, that's what we were joking about, just changing our last names.
Adding an extra letter.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's not a bad theory. Yeah, I saw Montana moose, sheep, and goat came out. Did you check there?
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah, nothing there. So
okay.
Year number 24 of crying in my soup, I guess.
Yeah, I've been lucky. I've drawn a moose and a goat, and so I really can't complain much. I'm back in the goat drawing, and then would love to draw sheep. And then I saw Idaho's results came out for moose, sheep, and goat. I was in for a sheep tag there. Pretty good odds for sheep tags, just because they make you pick your species. But yeah, I blanked there as well. And yeah, checking around with buddies and my dad, and haven't heard of too many. I heard Remy drew Shiras moose tag in Idaho, so good on him. I know he's been applying for years there. And then is that true that Luke in the office drew one?
Yeah, he drew a sheep tag in the random.
Oh my gosh, in the random.
Yeah. But he's 28 years old or something, or 27, so he only has, maybe 10 points.
Yep.
But yeah, he drew one in the random. I hear these guys, all these guys that over the years that have drawn, somebody's got to draw it in the random, that have drawn a random tag, but I've never known anybody that's been that lucky, like that's drawn, in the random. And so at least I can say that, Brian. At least I can say I have a buddy that drew in the random now.
Yeah, well, good on Luke. I'd rather have the guys that I know draw it than guys that I don't or whatever. And definitely happy for anybody that pulls a good tag. But yeah, it's that random draw. Like I don't even put in for Wyoming moose, sheep, and goat. Of course, I'm a non-resident versus a resident, but in the random draw, there's just no chance, and I'll never have max points, and so it's just not worth the investment for me, So yeah, you kind of got to weigh your options when you're applying, but still some chances out there. We'll see. I still have a chance to get really lucky on some tags. So yeah, hopefully, I'm just saving up all my luck for one of these other states.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm talking to a buddy, Jack, the other day, and we were talking about draw odds and where to apply. And Nevada elk came up, and he's like, "I can't believe you don't apply for Nevada elk." And I was like, "Jack, it's the odds are so minimal to draw an archery elk tag in Nevada. Like, it's one of those states that I just don't do it, because it's how many long shot states can you actually stomach." And I talk about how I've never drawn anything, this or that, but in reality, all this stuff is 1% chance. And you romanticize about drawing these tags and the excitement, but in reality, it's a 30-year wait, especially in the random and with point creep. Like I don't really see it paying off, but I'm invested in so many of these systems now that you hate to give up 20 points. And I've done a couple articles about it actually in Montana and the bonus point system. And then you factor in being a non-resident. And it's like, in reality, if I want a decent chance at drawing a moose, sheep, or a goat tag with the amount of points that I have, I need to become a resident, because non-residents are only allocated up to 10% of the tag. So that's a minuscule amount right there. And then you factor in how many applicants there are, and then you factor in how many tags there actually are. And there's just not enough tags to satisfy like point pools. And so that's why the point system, it doesn't work. And for example, I apply for, a hard unit for moose in Montana, a harder unit. They're all hard, right? They're all hard. They're all 1 to 3% chance. But as a non-resident with 24 points, I still have about a 3 to 4% chance to draw. And still with those points, 3% chance, I mean, that's another 20 years. And, going back to Nevada with the elk statistics, that's what I told Jack. I was like, the odds just aren't there. And it's a bonus point system as well, but there's just so few tags. And we were crunching the numbers and looking at the numbers, and I told Jack, if you can find me a unit that I have more than 2% chance to draw an archery elk tag in Nevada after 25 years of applying, I'll look at it and I'll start getting excited. There's one unit that it's like a 2.02% chance with 25 points to draw an archery elk tag in Nevada, and it's like the least coveted one. It's it's not a hard one to draw. And so yeah, it's like, it's not worth it to me. And I feel like part of our tag strategy is There's just some that you have to say yes to and some that you have to say no to. That's my opinion. Otherwise, where does it stop? You know,
Mhm.
I'll start a savings account and put $500 in an account every year and go on a sheep hunt or buy a landowner tag or, whatever in Nevada. And so you factor that in too, instead of donating your money to the state every year and getting nothing out of it. I mean, it's things that I think about. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, that's the truth, man. You're crushing my Nevada elk dreams here as I'm in the draw this year. But no, we all have to make our own decisions at what states we're going to build points in, what states we're not. And like that, you get so much invested. You're right. Like that, I got a pretty good chance at that Colorado sheep tag as sheep odds. It's an archery only. I see the non-resident draw odds. They're actually better than my Montana odds with 23 points. And so, for me, it's worth it, but it's $100 a pop. And it's like, oh, per point. And then I can stop putting in for points and just be in the draw. But I've already got so much invested in it. Will I ever draw it? I don't know. And same thing with Nevada. Like as far as elk tags go, I have a unit that I know really well that I took a great buck out of, and I elk hunted it. My buddy drew it with like 0 points or 1 point one year, and so I went and hunted that with him. And then I have another buddy that drew that elk tag, and so I've got a bunch of good intel on that unit, and it's one of the easier to draw elk units. And so for some reason with 10 or 12 points, I feel like I'm due to draw it, but I know the reality of the situation. And you're right. Like sometimes, like it seems like my season doesn't hinge on these tough draws. Like I am able to put together a season every year of good opportunity and good places. And I kind of know, like we always talk, those 0 to 3 point units. Sometimes it's a 4 or 5 point unit, and I have to keep changing my strategy. But ultimately, the goal for me is to build a full season every year. So you're right. A guy should look at, like, I just paid my credit card payment, which I throw these on a credit card that I use, and I pay a bunch of money down. But then I looked at like the interest I'm paying this month, and it's like, Jesus, I'd be better to go cash on this deal with the interest that I'm paying before these states return my money, and I don't have anything else on my credit card but tags. And I start looking at what I put on a year, and it's ridiculous. And so, yeah, I mean, I like to have my name in these hats, but the reality of the situation is like I'm kind of throwing away a bunch of money. So I think I'm gonna look at my strategy a little bit closer, the money going out a little bit closer, and I'm still gonna keep myself in a bunch of drawings. But I'm really focused on building a season. And so, like I have there's trips that you can do and things that you can do where you can still do these amazing hunts for deer and for elk. And like, you're just getting back from New Zealand. And so, I'm starting to look at more and more of these adventure hunts. And of course, I've done a ton of them, but I just booked my ticket to Hawaii. I'm going to go hunt mouflon and axis there, which I absolutely love. And I can still get a tag there and make that work. And, I'm putting together like a Asiatic water buffalo hunt for like next dry season, like starting to work on that. And then I'm really thinking heavy about going and trying to kill my Alaskan Yukon moose. Like I did a trip, I invested some money, I was unsuccessful, but I learned a lot about that unit, and I still have access to the boats. I know the pilot I used, I know the area really well. And so I'm thinking about going all in and trying to kill my Alaskan Yukon. I kind of got hooked after Shiras moose hunting, and it's still available to non-residents to do like a do-it-yourself float trip. And the season's 20 days long, and I think I'll like really push myself and stretch myself, and I think I'll go for the whole dang season, and just give it my absolute all and try to arrow one of those things. And the unit I'm hunting is conducive to bow hunting. I've hunted it before, so I know what to expect. Where a lot of Alaskan units, it's like if you don't call them in, spot and stock isn't even an option with those satellite dish of those horns and picking up noise. And it's going to be an expense, but it's a hunt that I don't have to wait on. It's something where I can save my money. I'm going to sell my pile of horns. That money will go towards a hunt. Like, I'm just starting to make these plans of like, all right, well, if I can't draw a tag, I can still put together these epic seasons and these epic hunts. So like I'm starting to just work more and more on that, which I always have in the past as well. I'm always working on the next adventure, as I know you are, but there's still like a bunch of really cool things out there we can do.
There really is. And that's a strategy right there is, in my opinion, limit a little bit of the long shot units like what we're talking about. It's fun to do them, and you got to get your name in the hat for a sheep tag, because I'll never be able to afford to buy a bighorn sheep hunt. I think those are upwards of 80-90 grand now, and that's something that I would never spend the money on. Even if I had 80 or $90,000, I don't think I would spend it on a bighorn sheep. I would spend it on several of these hunts like what you're illustrating, where I can do a bit of my homework, a little of my own planning, and go on an epic adventure for relatively cheap. And with $90,000, I mean, you can do a lot with that. And so I guess you just have to figure out what floats your boat too, like what you're into. I know there's a lot of guys that have the sheep bug and they got to get their slam or whatever. And I'm not a sheep. I was going to say I'm not a sheep guy. I love hunting sheep. I've been on a few hunts, but I'm not, bent on getting a grand slam or anything like that. I mean, I would rather do multiple elk hunts than one sheep hunt. That's just kind of where I'm at. But I think ultimately that's right. Like what you said is, you figure out a plan for yourself. What do you enjoy, and scrimping and saving. And as you were talking about that, it's like, man, I think a guy is better off to not do any of the state draws for moose, sheep, and goat and buy these, $165 hunting license just to apply or just to buy a point. Instead, put that money into an account and do another adventure that year, every other year or whatever, overseas, New Zealand, like what we talked about on previous podcasts. There's all these other things that a guy can do for, relatively inexpensively if you do a little planning and a little saving. So it's definitely something to chew on. You got to budget a little bit, but yeah, that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me ticking, is all these adventures that are still, available at a decent price with some planning and some hard work and a little bit of, networking is very important, obviously, to get them done. But yeah, there's still a lot out there, and this moose, sheep, and goat stuff. It's long shot stuff, and it's fun to be in there. But in all reality, most guys aren't going to draw a tag. I mean, that's just how it is. And what is it? I think, out of all the hunters in the United States, 1 or 2% like actually go sheep hunting, like draw a sheep tag. So for most guys, it's not going to happen in the draws.
Yeah. I just turned 44. I've never had a sheep tag, and I've been applying my whole life, and especially the last 20 years I've been applying in all these states. And so yeah, it's like I'm not a sheep hunter either. I say that I would love to hunt sheep, desert or Rockies or Dalls or Stones or whatever the case is. I can't spend the money like you to go do it. So I've got to get lucky and draw a tag. But in that same breath, man, it's like, all right, so you want to be a sheep hunter. There's other things that compare to a sheep hunt. Like even, this upcoming Hawaii mouflon hunt. Like I love hunting those steep lava rock canyons, gnarly country. They're sheep. They have curls. I know it's not the same prestige as a bighorn or a Dall, but for me, it's like affordable. It's a do-it-yourself adventure. I get to go do it with my buddies. They're extremely difficult to arrow. Like that to me gets me fired up. Or to go do like the oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. What are those sheep that sit in New Mexico and Texas? The Aoudad. You've done that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's similar. It's like you can go down to that rough, rugged country and have like a desert style sheep hunt, or New Zealand tar and chamois. Like I did tar with my bow. That's the other thing, is we're bow hunters. And so I can't guarantee that if I go spend the money that I'm even going to kill a Dall sheep with my bow. And, I've never been guided, so I don't know that experience. But, there's just other options out there as well. And you have to be crafty. Like I was able to put that goat hunt together last year. That's in super extreme country. And a lot of the enjoyment of hunting sheep is like the country they live in. And really, like I find that same enjoyment out of hunting high country mule deer. Like I hope to draw a Colorado high country tag this year where it's like, above 12,000 feet, above 13,000 in some areas in and through there, and hunting the species that I love the most. It's so crafty, so switched on, and they build absolute giants down there. And it'll push me to, like, I know the last time I did this hunt, I stalked a buck that I had watched for 5 days, and I stalked him over a 13,000 foot peak. I was all by myself. I had storms, rugged mountains, super steep country. Like, I get the enjoyment out of those hunts. So I dream and romanticize like hunting a sheep. But in reality, if I never hunt one in my life, if I never draw a tag, I'll still be a happy man. Just being able to do these hunts and put these hunts together that compare to that, in my mind, at least the rugged country and steep nature of it, extreme bow hunting, like, really, for me, that's all I need in life. So that a sheep would be a bonus. So try not to get too discouraged. I think I'll still play states where I've built points and I have good odds, and maybe they'll pull my name out of the hat. But if they don't, like, there's enough good hunts out there that I can figure out and do, and I can fill up a season. Like, every year so far of my life, I've been able to build these epic seasons of hunting deer, hunting elk, antelope, doing abroad hunts and hunting different species where I'm really fulfilled doing those hunts. So yeah, I'm really going to look at my strategy as well, and really try to parse out like what's important to me and what I'm going to continue to apply for.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of what you're talking about there. Sheep hunters, some of these old timers are just, seasoned sheep hunters say that, sheep hunters are romantics. And you're describing kind of what, or like why sheep guys are romantics. It's the country, it's the adventure, it's these beautiful landscapes. There's so much more to it. And I think that goes hand in hand with adventure bow hunting, and kind of like why we like to do these adventures too. We're romantics in that way. And there's just so much more to it than, shooting something with your bow. And that's the beautiful thing about bow hunting, is it's so fulfilling in so many more ways than one. And it makes you a better person. And it kind of just, we're dreamers too, right? And all hunters are dreamers that have aspirations to sheep hunt or anything like that. And kind of these, and like you described, the mouflon or the aoudad, or, some of the ibex, or, hunts like that. It gives you a taste of like a sheep hunt, and it kind of, it feeds that bug inside you, that sheep bug inside you, with the country and the style. And I was fortunate enough to go on a Marco Polo hunt with Guy several years ago, and talk about an incredible experience. And I think about that hunt, and I think about, would it be cool to shoot a Marco Polo for myself? And the answer is yes, but I don't think I would buy one, because of reasons that we talked about before. But just being there was incredible. And just being there, it's like, it's hard to describe, but it almost fulfills that adventure, and that that bug. It feeds that bug that we all have as adventure bow hunters. And that's ultimately what we need, right, as bow hunters, is feeding that bug. And it did that for me. And so whether or not I kill a sheep or not, that's fine. But to experience it, to be on it, to experience the culture, to talk to the people, and I still think about that hunt all the time. The travel, and the cities, that like this city that I wouldn't call it a city, but just the incredible places that I saw in Tajikistan was definitely life changing. And so, it just, man, it's fun to think about those experiences. I would love to do it again, but there's definitely, other ways to feed the bug, I guess. And so, it's fun to romanticize. That's kind of what drives us, and thinking about future hunts and planning, and scheming the next adventure. But to experience it is fulfilling enough, I feel like.
And I always say it, but I really think that elk and mule deer out west are like some of the coolest hunts you can do, and really inexpensive in the grand scheme of things, you know. And so like I romanticize my mule deer hunts or my elk hunts, or these tags that I get, like I mentioned that Colorado tag, but man, I mean, that'll keep me training so hard for this season. I know how rough and rugged that country is. I've hunted multiple units in Colorado, but this specific unit, I took one of my best bucks, a 200-inch buck, out of one of these units. I've chased some absolute giants in there, and I've actually brought like 2 or 3 bucks out of this unit. Like, it's a great unit for me. And so like it's going to have me doing high elevation training. I know it's above 12, 13,000 feet. I know my legs get heavy. It's a backpack adventure. Some of the gnarliest lightning storms and weather that I've ever encountered. And I know I'll have to be at the top of my game. And so I'll be running up on the top of the Gravelies this summer, up above 10,000 feet, to get acclimated. I'll be doing summer backpacking trips. I'll be lifting and doing my squats so I can pack out a buck, like, once the time comes, if I am fortunate enough. Like these hunts drive me, and I get to have like all my gear, all my stuff, drive my truck down there, do the hunt for under $1,000. I can take a bunch of time and enjoy it. And so like these hunts drive me. I've got, an Idaho elk tag this year, as well as a good Montana tag, but I know I'll be hunting elk, and I'll get in some of these wild places where I'm going to hear hundreds of bugles. I'm going to see giant 6 points, or maybe a non-typical. I know that I'm going to be putting on 15 miles a day, and that I have to have my endurance up. I know that I'm going to have heartbreak. It like has all these elements for like these wild adventures. And so I know this season, whether, I draw a sheep tag or not, or whether I have a big hunt abroad, I know that I have some of the coolest adventures in front of me. And like, that's going to drive me throughout the season to keep working hard, to plan, to get my time off. I know I'm going to have a chance at these animals. And to me, like, I'd love to kill a big sheep. I love killing different species. But for me to hold a giant mule deer, to hold a giant bull, to kill a personal best, which is still on the menu for me. Like, those animals are out there and exist. And so like to have the chance at some of these amazing animals in this amazing country with this wild adventure, and to have the days, like, dude, that's really all I need in life.
Yeah. Yeah. And what makes a guy feel good about doing some of these wild adventures and wild places, and like describing your high country mule deer hunt like you were, and the style of hunting that we've done. I love doing those type of hunts because, I feel like that those are just preparation for if I ever draw a goat or a sheep tag. Like, that you can do it. You've gone through the paces, you've done the work, but it's just a different species that you're pursuing that day. And that's kind of a driving factor in my bow hunting career, in my bow hunting life, is all these hunts that we do every year, no matter what it is, a general tag or doe tags or whatever. That's preparation for the chance to draw a really coveted tag that might be once in a lifetime, and knowing that we're going to be prepared for it and make the most of it. And that's ultimately what it's all about. And that came to realization for me this year with so I drew a Montana elk tag. I'm not going to say where, but I drew a Montana elk tag. I had 17 points. And in reality, as a non-resident, this is my one shot. This is it. And I realized that, I can apply in the future, but just in all reality, I'm going to have one chance at this. And of course I want to kill the biggest bull possible, but this is it. But here's the thing. This is what I've been preparing for my entire life. This is the situation that I've thought about since I was 13 years old, 14 years old, to make the most out of a once in a lifetime experience. This is my Super Bowl. This is it, Brian. And obviously I have high expectations for myself, but once again, the world that we live in, this is hunting. This is hunting. Nothing's guaranteed. Nothing's going to be easy. And you need luck. I don't care how good you are, you're going to need some luck. Luck is involved in every hunt in one way or another. But I do know I'm going to be ready. The things that I'm in control of, I'm going to be ready for it. And I've done the preparation. I've worked hard my whole career. I've hunted a bunch. My mind is in the right place. So I know that if I encounter that bull, I'm going to have as good a chance as I'll ever have in my life to make it happen and make it come together. And that's ultimately what's driven me my whole entire life, is a situation like this when it comes to bow hunting.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. You're right. It's all been working towards these opportunities and these hunts, and you don't know when it's going to come up or when you're going to get it, but yeah, you're right. You'll be ready and do everything. And I do think, sure, luck's a factor, but you do create your own luck. Like, you'll create your own luck with your scouting, with your e-scouting, with your connections, with your time that you're going to take to do this hunt. Like, you're going to give yourself enough time. And also, you've killed a bunch of giant bulls. Like, what a big one is. What you can set your sights for. The bulls that you can hold off on, where 10, 15 years ago, those bulls would catch an arrow. So yeah, like, your whole life has been working towards this hunt and this opportunity, and you're definitely going to make the most of it. And that's the beautiful thing, is like, I think, we might not have those type of opportunities every year, but it's the same thing even with a general season or a 2 or 3 point tag or whatever you draw. It's like, man, I am going to make the most out of this. And so yeah, I think that's what it's all about. And it's like, this is a lifetime endeavor or skill set. You wouldn't be ready for that hunt in a season or in 5 seasons. Like, you've been working your whole life towards that hunt. And same with me. When I get these opportunities at these good tags or these good opportunities, like, I've been working a lifetime to build my hunting skill set to give myself the absolute best chance. So when I glass that personal best 220-inch mule deer, or I glass that 375-inch bull, like, I may kill him, I may not, but I know that I've worked my whole life to prepare for these moments to be at my very best. And two, like, leading into season, that work you do leading into season is going to help prepare you. Your hunt for red deer, getting that action on those red deer, your hunt coming up for axis deer in Hawaii, or like all the training and prep that you're going to do on this tag or this hunt. It's all going to factor into your chances at success, and so, yeah, it's like, the beautiful thing is, like, to have passion in our lives and something that we truly love, and something that is so difficult to harvest one of those animals. Like, if you were to parse out the odds of it or whatever, the odds are really low, even in a good unit, but it's like this preparation, preparing for these moments. And then when it happens, or when it comes together, it's like a beautiful thing. But it's so nice to have something that we love so much in life, that we can put so much work and effort and thought into. And like you said, it does, it makes us better people overall. And so I love being excited about life and opportunities and things that are coming up. And we definitely have a lot to be excited for this season.
Definitely. That's what it's all about. A big part of hunting, talking to a buddy last year that drew Wyoming, and he'd never killed a bull elk before. And, he's just aspiring elk hunter his whole life, but never really did it. And he's from Maui, an older guy, 72. But for him, and it made me think too, because such a huge part of it is the anticipation and the excitement and the planning. And I think, having that ability, or just having something like that in life, something to look forward to, is huge, especially in this day and age. We see a lot of negative things. Man, the economy's tough. There are health problems with everybody, and so there's a lot of things in normal life that can really bring a guy down. And when it comes down to it, it's amazing the power of looking forward to something that does for your health, physically and mentally, something to work for, to work towards. And I think ultimately that is what plays a large role of me being happy in life, of who I am, is looking forward to these hunts and the anticipation and the preparation. That's the fun of it. And then, you go and apply that preparation to your hunting, to the experience. And then when you do come out of it successful, you're like, wow, like it feeds your soul, and it's something that you just have to have more of. Good thing I don't do drugs. I don't do cocaine or whatever, because I would be an addict, I feel like.
Yeah, I definitely have an addictive personality for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good I got hooked on hunting and experiences in life, as there's so much more to it. But yeah, that is a bunch of the enjoyment, is the anticipation, is the planning, the thoughts of it. And then when you actually get there, you've put so much work and effort in. It's like, here I am, I'm at my Super Bowl, or I'm at this event that I've looked forward to, and I've got the days off, and I've made pencil, and I've put the work in. Like, here I am in this wild place trying to make it happen. And, it's not easy. Like I know, I've killed a bunch of like really good black bears in my career with my bow, which I'm really proud of. They're one of the tougher animals in Montana to kill with my bow, especially like spot and stock. We have no baiting. So like, they're really difficult, but I think it's easy to look at these photos and go, God, Brian's always killing these big bears. But the reality is, like, I put myself in these situations constantly. And so I've already had 2 giant goes at black bears. So last weekend I went and backpacked into this unit. This unit I've been hunting now. This is the 3rd year I've been into this unit. I've learned a lot about this unit. I've seen a lot of bears in there. And for me, I can hold off on the mediums, and I'm looking for a giant. But I backpacked in before light by myself. And got in there about 4 hours in there to this vantage point I wanted to sat at the vantage point. I'm going to sit there for an hour or 2, and I know the country's right, and I know I can see so much of it, and I have a plan to keep moving up these ridgelines and glassing, but it's like, I really got to hold to this vantage point for a while because I can see so much. And then off in the distance, after 2 hours of sitting there, I finally spot like a great big light chocolate, and it's a giant. It's a jumbo, it's like the one I've been looking for in this unit. And so, I have to go further back into country and try to kill this bear and give myself a chance. And man, it just lined up so perfect. It was like, okay, there he is. He just came out. It's going to take me an hour to get there, but I had a place where I could lay up and I could glass across into this basin and I could see everything. So it's almost like I can stage right there and I can wait to make my final moment. And so I go down there, found a piece of an arrowhead going down there, which is like an awesome omen as a bow hunter. It's like, oh man, this guy's doing what I'm doing, and so I hustled down there, and it's just laid out perfect, man. I get this vantage point across this drainage. I don't see the bear out there, but it's like, okay, he was headed down towards this patch of timber. I'm sure he went and bedded in that. Like, he's going to come out. I just got to give him an hour or 2. It's early in the day. I made it to the vantage point at 3:15. I saw the bear at 2:00. Left my vantage point at 2:30 after keeping an eye on him, and he was just feeding on grass. He's not rolling through country. I mean, it's the setup that I'm looking for, and this is the second bear that I've gone full send on this year. The first one was a big jet black. So I'm sitting there, and man, an hour goes by, 2 hours go by. I ended up sitting on that vantage point for 5.5 hours, and that bear never showed. And so my point of all this is, like, then I've got to put on my headlamp, and I've got 4+ hours of hiking out and hearing noises. And, this is an 8 or 9 hour go that I've made, 8 or 9 hours of hiking, not to mention the time on the vantage point, not to mention the drive time to get there before light when I left, not to mention the drive time I have to get home or sleeping. But people don't see all this work that goes into killing a trophy or to killing these trophy bears. It's like, I also fail a lot, and I also like have these long hikes out by myself with my headlamp, and I'm just putting myself in these situations a lot. But this is building my endurance. Like I get to run for an hour a day. I might get an hour and a half or even 2 hours on a big long run, but very rare am I getting 8 or 9 hours of cardio work, with a pack on. And my pack, I've got my bow, I've got my spotting scope, I've got my pistol, I've got my overnight bag, I've got like enough food. And so like, even though it's not the heaviest pack in the world, it's still 35 plus pounds. And I get this 8 or 9 hour go of endurance. I get this mental toughness at like having to walk out in the dark or seeing that bear a long ways off and going even further into country just to give myself a chance. And so all of this is like just shaping like all these hunting skills to give myself a better chance. And I'll find another big bear. Like I'll get another chance this season. Like it'll happen. But all this stuff is like really helping shape me as a better bow hunter. And these muscles, like you don't just build this mental toughness and then you have it. Like it's a muscle that you have to continue to flex and continue to push yourself, and your physical fitness, it's like you can't just rest on your laurels. Like you gotta keep driving and pushing forward. So all this stuff has helped shaping me as a better bow hunter. But you are gonna have failures. You are gonna see the giant animal that you want and not harvest them. You're gonna have to pick yourself up from this. You're gonna have to strengthen your mental toughness, strengthen your physical fitness. But you never know. Like going on these big bear missions, maybe I don't kill a giant bear, but maybe I do find that buck in Colorado that I'm looking for this year. And I have this mental edge and I have this physical edge because of all the work that I've put in, and I harvest that giant buck. So you don't know when your day in the sun is going to come. You just continue to sharpen all these tools and like continue to go for it. And this go for it, full send attitude, it'll carry over and I'll be successful eventually, whether it's mule deer this season or elk this season, or could be a giant bear. That could still happen, but it's not guaranteed. But you just have to work hard to be able to give yourself a chance at these critters.
And I love hunts like that. I love the spring bear hunts because you factor in what it takes and what you have to do as a bow hunter for this to come together. Spot and stalk bear hunting, the distance that you have to cover, the timing, honing the timing of, okay, is it time to go? Is that bear locked in? Is he cruising? Is he going to be here for a little bit? Do I have a chance? How long can I keep eyes on him? All these things. It's so mental, right? And it's all these things that you're factoring in and you're feeling out that, and it's difficult. It's so difficult. But I feel like with the bears, you're not, I mean, you could call them. I was going to say, it's not like you go out and you call bears. Yeah, you can call bears, but spot and stalk bear hunting, it's not like they're bugling, right? So that's one way to lose location of them is they're not talking, they're not saying anything to you, right? And then number two, they're so unpredictable. Like they can come out and feed and the weather affects them too, like how much they feed. They could come during the day and then they go back into the timber and sleep for a couple hours, or they could roll on. You have all this dark green timber. So there's all these things. And once you do it enough and maybe you find some success, this is the type of stuff that makes deer elk hunting easier. Because I feel like, deer, elk, or ungulates, they're a little bit more predictable on, when they're going to be out, when they're not. Bears, it's a wild card, right? I mean, you don't know if you're going to get a cruiser. You don't know if you're going to get one locked in, but after you watch one for 10 or 15 minutes by how he's moving or, how he's feeding or what his body language is. Like, is he going to be there? Do I have 25 minutes to get over there to him, or is he going to be gone? What are some of your tips with that, Brian? Because I know that's a difficult part, especially when you're hunting in green timber. Like, how do you know it's time to go?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately I want to give myself a chance, but time to go for me is like not like a moving bear through country. I'm never going to be able to track down or get to. He's just rolling country. He's looking for sows. Like I know that's not a go scenario. So feeding grass is like a big one for me when he's in a park or he's in a meadow, he's feeding grass, he's holding to that meadow. And a lot of times these bears are just bedding on the edges and coming back into the same park. And I know this from seeing the same bears in the same area. I know this from seeing sign around that meadow. And so I'm definitely looking for a bear that's feeding on grass. And then I'm going to hunt them in their feeding features. So I'm not going to go in after a bear in the timber. I just know it's low percentage. And so these bears come in and out of these parks. And so like I try to, I figure I have an hour or two from when I see them to when they're going to be out in there. But a lot of times what I'm doing is I'm just trying to get closer. Like I very rarely see bears close. Like I'm seeing bears miles away. And so what I want to do is I want to give myself a chance. And so that's what I did on this bear is I staged up where I had a good vantage point and a good wind. And I was 500 yards away from the park that he left. I could see the whole basin. And so it had like a perfect staging ground where it's like, okay, that bear isn't there, but that's okay. Because I know he's going to come back out in these parks. Now, he didn't come back out in the parks like I thought. I don't know if he just bedded in the timber. I don't know if he rolled on. I don't know what exactly this bear did. But most of the time, I know that I can stage up. And it's only 3:15 in the afternoon. This bear is going to come back out in the afternoon in an hour or two, or he's going to come back out in the evening. And now I've staged up where it's going to take me 15 to 20 minutes to get to him. I know typically when he comes out into that park, he's going to feed for about an hour or so minimum. So like that's what I'm trying to factor in. And I'm just always trying to give myself a chance. But there too, if that bear's rolling country or I have no chance of catching up to him, or if I see him in the evening and I can't make it to him in time before it's dark, well, that's when I'll hold off and I'll go try to get him at another time. But the things that I am doing on bears is I'm keeping the wind right and just trying to give myself a chance and get closer and stage up. And it didn't work out on that one, but it will work out eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a numbers game, right? With bears. That's all it is. The couple things that I like to keep in mind when it comes to making a play on a bear is keeping them in sight for as long as you can. And the longer that you can keep tabs of them, the better. And like when I have to like make a move and I have to take my eyes off of them because of the terrain or the timber, I get like this sense of urgency of like hustling. Like maybe it's jogging, maybe it's, a fast walk or whatever. But the more time as the clock ticks with your eyes off of them, your percentage, your chance to kill that bear are going down. It's just a cause and effect going down. So the longer that you don't have eyes on them, your odds are going down. And one thing that I like to, when it comes to looking and watching their body language is buddy Tyler, he calls it like lawn mowing, like when they're turning in circles, they're eating and they kind of work a pattern in a meadow. And usually that means they're locked in, and that's going to be a bear that's going to be there for a duration. And usually if you can, catch them and get on them within 20, 30 minutes, you have good odds. You have good odds. And if they're moving slow, like when they're eating, but then you get a bear rolling through you might be moving fast, or he's hunting. You can tell he's hunting. He's moving his head. He might eat some grass here and then take a few steps and then walk over here and hunt. It's like, unless I have like a lot of open country to work with and I can keep my eyes on them, yeah, that's going to be a bear I'm not even going to make a play on. I probably won't even try unless I have something else. If I have some opening, if I have some geographical features that are going to aid me, but that's a low odds bear. And eventually I think it just comes down to a numbers game. Sometimes you get lucky and you catch a bear that's locked in, and other times you don't. You catch a cruiser, and it depends on the stage of the rut. It depends on when that bear woke up, for the spring. I hear a lot of things, and I've seen mixed intel with this, but some guys say like the big bears get up early. I think it depends on the feed year. I think big bears get up late. So I think there's still a lot of big bears that are still sleeping right now. And I think it depends on the year, how much snow there is, how much feed is out there. And so there's all these factors. And it's just like a big bull elk. Are you going to catch them on the right day or not? That's what it comes down to. If you catch them on the right day, you've got high odds on a giant bear. If you don't catch him on the right day, he's cruising, he's feeding, he's moving country, then you got lower odds. And what do you think about weather? Like, what have you seen with spring bear hunting and rain or sleet or even like a couple inches of snow? Like, will you go out the next day? Like, how does weather affect how you bear hunt?
Mm. Yeah, first off, I love what what you said about like keeping your eyes on them and your percentages go up. I think that goes from it for any animal too. The longer you know his exact location, the better your odds of killing them. So yeah, I really like what you said there. Yeah, whether bears are wild, like they break all the rules. Like you say, do big ones come out early? Do they come out late? Do they? I kind of think the big ones come out later. I tend to see more smaller bears early, but to me, it's all elevation. It's all keyed into the elevation. So here in my home valley, I haven't even really started hunting yet. Now it's starting to get good. It's getting the green tint. Bears are going to start to show up. But I've just learned this over years of hunting this place. And so this other range that I have is lower elevation. Now all the bears are out in that elevation. And so I have better odds to go there and to hunt early. As far as weather, it's like bears will break all the rules. It's like it depends on the time of year. So early in the season, like crappy weather seems to put them away or put them back in their dens. And I don't see much, maybe breaks in the storm. As it gets later in the season, then those stormy, rainy days are better because it's like hotter. It's into May and into June. And so those colder, rainy days, they're more apt to be out throughout the day and the middle of the day. Or the hot sunshine, it's like in the early part of the season, the hot sunshine and bright skies, they'll come out throughout the day in that because they're finally warming up from the winter and that sun feels good on their coats and on their body and they're feeding on the grass. They're trying to get their system started again. So they really want to feed during that nice weather. But as it gets later in the season, then that hot sunshine weather, the bears are hot and don't want to come out throughout the day. And so that's when I'll hunt like the evenings when the sun goes down on those hot sunny days. And so it's really wild. Like I have all these conditions, but ultimately it comes down to my hunting instincts and all these years hunting these bears of when I'm going to hunt or when I'm not. I don't see many during like after a snowstorm, but the day or two after it breaks, like I'll be hunting this weekend after we've got these snows, as long as the mountains look right and the snow kind of melts off. These bears have been held up all week. And so I think this weekend is going to be really good to find a bear. Even if it's sunshine and 70-degree weather, I'm going to be hunting the middle of the days or the mornings or whatever, because I believe that they're first coming out of their dens, that I have a good chance of finding them. If it was towards June and I'm hunting these bears, okay, and I have hot sunshine and 80-degree days on the forecast, well, then I'm going to hunt like probably the afternoon evenings. I'll hunt from 5 till 8, and I'm probably going to see those bears in the last 2 hours of light. And so it's like different depending on the time of year for me. There is so many factors, and bears are kind of like a black magic. And the minute you make a rule for bears, they'll break that rule. And so they're really difficult.
No, that's so well said. That's why they're so difficult, and to find a good one too. And it's funny because how temperamental they really are early, like you said. And if they get some snow, they'll go back in their den and den up. If you get a spring storm that drops, 8, 10, 12 inches of snow, they'll go back to sleep for a week. I've kind of heard that too, and seen that. And I think too, there's a huge factor on how good a shape was that bear in when he went to sleep the fall before. Did he have good feed? And that's going to play on when he actually comes out the next year. Now, generally speaking, like the older bears, just like an old bull elk, like they kind of have their routine nailed down. Like they know where the best feed is. They know what's worked for them over the last several years. They know what they're doing. These are seasoned animals. They've been there for 8, 9, 10 years. And bears, I mean, 25 years old is not out of the question for a bear. I mean, 27 years old. The oldest one I've killed was 18. That was an old bear. Teeth wore down, but there's plenty that get older. And so these bears, they figure out what works and the right places to be during, the fall, and where to den in the spring. And you'll see these big older bears, I feel like, go to bed a little bit earlier, and they like these north faces, and they like the high country. They bed on these north faces up high, these old bears. And this varies so much. This is my experience hunting in Montana, in the high country in Wyoming. And then some of these old bears, they're not popping out. They're not coming out, depending on the snow year and depending on their fat reserves, until the end of May. And I've killed a couple bears that one of them was June 5th one year in Montana. And I'm telling you, I'm convinced that bear just got out of his den, because it was June 5th. It was super late. It was a big snow year. He was right down at the base of this giant sweeping north face, the green up. It's like he knew from years prior. He knew when he got out of his den that he was going to have primo ideal feed 300 feet below his den. And they plan this, and they set themselves up like this. These older bears do. And he came out, and he's not, and he's just locked in, and he's just mouthful after mouthful. He's in it to feed. He is locked in. And of course, that's the situation that they're easier to get on and easier to harvest that way, when they're that locked in like that. But like, the art of a bear is, it's interesting. Maybe art isn't the right word, but the science behind of, like, what a bear figures out during the course of his life, it's so calculated. And you'll see, like, the younger bears, they don't have things figured out. They're winging it, right? Trying to figure out food in the wintertime. Maybe they're 2 years off their mom, and they're, trying to get things figured out. They're out early in the spring in the snow because they're hungry, and they denned in a less than ideal spot. They don't have the denning figured out, and they're moving fast, and they're kind of all over the place. And it's funny to watch, and it's so fun to just watch the progression of a bear and the different, like, the maturity levels of bear. And you can compare it to, an elk. It's just like a spike elk or a 2-point, 3-point buck, like a young buck or a young bull. That's just, he's out there winging it. He's like, ooh, the rut. What's the rut? Let's try this out. And then he finds out the hard way. Guess what? You don't get to be involved in the rut this year, little guy. And so we can build these correlations between animals and hunting and apply that to future hunts, kind of like what we've been talking about. But bears are one of those things that, anybody can go do it, especially the spot and stock stuff. Such a fun way to hunt them. But there's also the management aspect of bear hunting as well. And that's why I do support baited hunting for bears, because I know it's important to harvest bears, right? There's a lot of studies out there. The University of Idaho, and it was another college that did a study, or maybe it was just Idaho Game and Fish, but they did a study on black bear predation on deer fawns and calves. And I don't have the numbers here in front of me, but it is so substantial how many fawns and calves that black bears kill. And so, yeah, baiting is fine if that's what you want to do. I don't find, for me, I don't enjoy it as much as spot and stock hunting, but I've been doing it the last couple of years with my wife Eva, or the kids, because it's such a good opportunity to just get bears in front of people and be able to experience, a wild animal like that up close that needs to be managed, right? That's a predator. It needs to be managed. And so, man, there's a ton of ways to do it. It's like what we talked about New Zealand on one of these last podcasts, or maybe it was just for the Elk Collective. We were talking about this the other day. In New Zealand, there's tons of ways to do New Zealand. How big's your checkbook? You factor that in. How do you want to do it? What floats your boat? But you can find, a way to bear hunt and tailor it to what you enjoy. And that's what hunting's all about.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're talking about opportunities at the beginning of the podcast. This is an opportunity to get out in the spring and go chase an adventure, and And I'm like you, I don't have anything against baiting, and I think it's a great tool, especially for thicker country, to be able to harvest bears and to help our ungulate populations. For me, I really enjoy the spot and stalk. I enjoy the adventure. Like, a big bear to me means so much in big wild country and spot and stalk, and to kill them with with my bow. And the other thing it does is it improves my skill set. Like, listening to you talk about bears, Dan, like I can hear the knowledge. Like, all of this is like problem solving. And the better we know these species, the better we know their tendencies, the better that we start to solve this puzzle of these animals. Like, that applies to also being able to solve the puzzle on giant bulls, on giant bucks, on, maybe their tendencies aren't the same, or their habits aren't the same. Or I know, big mule deer and elk don't hibernate, even though sometimes it feels like it. But it's like, the better that we know these animals, the better that we can problem solve, the better that we can dial in these species and kind of know their tendencies and what they like and where they're at. Like, creative thinking is rewarded in the bow hunting woods. And so, like, all of this stuff factors into our knowledge base and makes us better problem solvers. And I think that's like a big reason why we have success, is like just our knowledge of these species and tendencies and habits, and what does bucky country look like, what elk habitat do they like, and then being able to take this knowledge and apply it to different places when hunting elk or mule deer. Like, that's why we're successful, is because we know so much about these species that we're hunting, because we practice problem solving so much to try to figure out these animals. So what's a high percentage play? What's a low percentage play? And, bears make me better at like, at being able to put multiple days in. Like, there was a bear season I had 50 days in one time. It was like, because I can go out evenings after work and I live in good bear country. There's a lot of bear seasons where I have 20, 30 days in. Like, it makes me have grit and determination. So I think it like played a big role in harvesting that Shiras moose that I hunted for 30 days, and I didn't see a lot of moose in it. And I had to stay diligent, and I had to keep going out and putting day after day. Like, my bear hunting over the years factored into my success on that hunt. And like, reading winds with bears, they're so good with winds, and smell 7 times what a bloodhound can. And so, like, you have to be dialed on your wind knowledge. Well, that factors into hunting elk and making sure that my wind isn't blowing into these elk as I'm shadowing or coyoting the herd. Like, all these skills are going to apply to your overall hunting skill set, and knowing these species, being able to problem solve. Like, it's a big reason why we're successful on a bunch of different hunts throughout the year.
Absolutely. That's a great point. With your moose hunt, you killed your bull later in the season. The rut had kind of wound down. I mean, you can bring up all sorts of correlations on, spot and stalk moose hunting. Talk about difficult. And it's how similar is that to spot and stalk bear hunting? Very similar. So your spot and stalk moose hunt, once you locate, I mean, that was nothing for you, right? I mean, because you've done all your homework. All the years of bear hunting and putting those reps in, hunting the same style. And so your Super Bowl, your once in a lifetime, bam, dominated it. And yeah, you got to put days in sometimes, and moose hunts have that nature, just like bear hunts can have that nature. You can go 20 days and not kill a bear, not find the right one. And moose hunting's the same way. But that right there, that's good enough for me, Brian. Spring bear hunting, I'm prepping for a moose hunt in the future, because that's something I need to make the most of. You're going to get one moose tag in your life in most states, in all practicality. And so you got to make the most of it. You had a tough year, tough unit. And so that situation that you found yourself in, and you probably, once you saw that bull that you ended up harvesting, he didn't stand a chance. I mean, you had him. But that's what it's all about, is putting in the work and doing all these other hunts in such a similar fashion that moose didn't stand a chance.
Yeah, man, that's exactly it. Like, all this is preparing us for these moments. We're just not sure when those moments or those opportunities are going to arise. And I'm sure we're going to have some opportunities come this fall. And I'm just so stoked, whether I never draw a sheep tag, or but I just know that me and you have a full season and we have some great opportunities in these hunts, and we're going to put everything in them. There's going to be a few good critters hit the dirt. That's for sure.
That's right. And even though I didn't draw sheep tag, you better believe I'm going to be going on Luke's hunt if I have anything to say about it, as long as I can find some days in my schedule, depending on when he wants to hunt, because adventure like that, to be able to be around sheep or a special tag like that, it doesn't come around every day. And so yeah, it'll be fun just to be a part of that any way that I can. And yeah, doing a lot of hunting for myself too. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Awesome, man. All right. Well, let's wrap this up, and thanks for jumping on this morning, and yeah, we'll catch up soon.
Sounds good, buddy.
Okay.